these animals will always surprise you. The minute you think you've got them in a box, they're not. They're trying out different things just the way we do.
Do you define consciousness in these creatures?
Yeah.
Are there stages of consciousness that we apply towards mammals?
I think there's much more consciousness in animals in general than we give them credit for, because we're kind of arrogant. You get very excited when you see some animals that are, like some of the humpbacks, they're curious about us for some odd reason. And anywhere in the world, it seems, and they come over the boat and check you out and sometimes want to touch you and things like that.
How do they touch you?
Well, with their flipper, but you try to avoid that.
Yeah.
This week's episode of Life with Strings Attached was filmed on location in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Richard Sears is a Franco-American who founded the Mingan Island Cetacean Study in 1979 to study marine mammals in the St. Lawrence, with an emphasis on baleen whales. He worked with and learned from the pioneers of whale research. From them, he learned that in order to know whales, there is no better place than to spend a lot of time at sea. The work initiated in 1979 became the first long-term blue whale research project on the planet and the longest continuous data collection effort of cetaceans in the St. Lawrence. He started the first long-term study of blue whales in the Sea of Cortez, collected the first blue whale identification photographs and biopsies off western Iceland, collected data on blue whales passing by the archipelago near the Azores, with which he's contributed to a catalog of more than 800 blue whales from the Northeast Atlantic. In addition, he's worked off Georgia, Panama, Costa Rica, New Caledonia, Greenland, Baffin Island, the Mediterranean, and the Marquesian Islands, a truly global impact. Today, Richard continues to be involved in blue whale research in the North Atlantic, where his main interest lies on distribution, movements, and habits of blue whales. In the St. Lawrence, his main interest focuses on blue and fin whale social interactions and habitat use. He says his greatest frustration is the water's surface and the visibility beneath. Sears is also a lifelong guitar player and music lover. I very much enjoyed my conversation with Richard. I hope that you do too.
So Richard, thank you for having us here on your deck with your amazing I don't know if they're in the shot, but you've made some...
Yeah, well, it's one of my little hobbies.
Yes.
Much to Eveline's, despair sometimes. But
yes.
I don't know why I got so fascinated with hibiscus, but I have a friend of mine who's also marine mammologist, works down at Cape Cod, who just retired, and I pale next to him because he's into dahlias. And he's got dirt in his basement and, bags with dahlia roots, and outside he's got like 3,000 of them. So I'm not even close.
After a NAMM show one time, we had a bunch of guitar makers over to our house there in California to have a social, and one person brought up flowers and botany, and two other guitar makers jumped in, and I had no idea that these guys were that deep into it. They all knew seriously the science behind it.
That's what happens with Story Mayo and myself at marine mammal conferences.
Yes.
We're talking at, go out for a beer, and people will say, "What are you two talking about? You're not talking about whales, you're talking about flowers." And Stormy and I are going back and forth about the dirt and they're like, "Okay, we're not paying attention to this. We're just going to listen to talk about marine mammals." But
that's always the case. So I want to actually do another series of interviews where we talk about what people's other deep interests are, because there always is something like that. Whenever you talk to somebody who's accomplished something, it's not their only obsession in life. There's always something else. Right?
Yeah.
and they don't get a chance to talk about it as much. They're always interviewed about the same thing. And so I think they'd be really keen on actually talking about that other obsession that people would like to sort of...
I probably have a few.
It's like the B-side, right? It's this was supposed to be the hit, but everyone really dug that other song, and there's lots of examples of that in history. And often, actually, the thing that was successful for them was not sometimes their primary thing. Famously, Ella Fitzgerald went out to a talent contest as a dancer. And someone got up and danced before her, and she went, "Oh no, I'm not going to get this as a dancer." And so she sang, but she had no intention of going there as a singer. And the rest is
history.
The rest is history, right?
But for me, I guess it's taking care of plants is Zen. You know, you just trim little things. You know, I'm sure anybody says that. Matter of fact, historically, a lot of the old sailors in British Navy and stuff became farmers or took care of the land afterwards because they'd been at sea their whole lives and beaten up by waves. It's not the way I feel, but I mean, for me, it's something that's very relaxing to be able to, get this to work and get different flowers and see what kind of color configurations you can get in these plants, and that's a lot of fun. And then probably, I mean, for me, music is really important. I mean, I like playing the guitar. Not that I'm any great shakes at it, but I do appreciate a guitar that sounds good, and know how good ones should be made or are made. And so those things, and then probably art, paintings, things like that. My parents sort of dragged me to a lot of museums, and for some reason the art stuck, but the old stone didn't. I'm not that big on visiting churches in France and stuff. I mean, I recognize that the work that's gone into it and the beauty of it, but for me, it's I like the expression of art in a painting, mostly watercolors, which my father did a lot of, and he got quite good at it. He used to drive my sister and myself crazy when we were young because we had to sit still while he attempted to paint us.
Yes.
Being very stern. So,
oh, no.
Richard, sit still, you know. But he pursued it till, just before he passed away in his 90s, and he became he made himself into a very good artist. But he did it just for himself. He didn't have any idea of showing his art or selling it. It just, for him, it was his Zen moment, I think.
And they were portrait watercolors? Landscapes?
No, they were landscapes.
Landscapes.
There's some
you said
downstairs.
You were in them. You had to be in them at some point, right?
No, well, that was when he was starting.
Oh, okay.
So he had two subjects that he could control, sort of.
Yes.
And so he did that because my mother was having none of it, she said. But anyway, so that stayed with me, and I was lucky enough to be exposed to European cultures and North American culture, although now I'm starting to wonder if the North American part I was that lucky when I think of what's happening in the United States. But
you grew up between New England and France, right?
Yeah, well, my father was working for the State Department, so I grew up. We lived in Washington D.C. for a while.
Okay.
We worked there, and before that they lived in New York, and but mostly it was around Boston, and then France. When my father was no longer in the working for the State Department, my mother was very pointed about saying that it was time to go back to France.
Okay.
And they built that house in the south of France. God, almost must be going on 60 years ago.
Okay.
And
you moved there at that point in time?
We didn't move. We used it in the summer.
Okay.
Oh, we sometimes would go in other periods. Yeah. But it was more of a summer house. But we'd spend the whole good few months there. And it's it's a wonderful place. It's one of the few places in the south of France there are no other houses, which is amazing.
Yes.
There's a little hamlet up above, and
were you near the lavender?
Well, the lavender's inland a bit.
Okay.
We're right on the coast.
Right on the coast.
So we have a view of the ocean, of the Mediterranean, and we just go down the little, 150 meters, and you're in the water.
Right.
Rocky shore. But, I always joke, my American friends ask me, where is it that you live down there? And probably one of the few places they know is they've heard of Saint-Tropez, So I tell them, well, it's about 20 minutes from Saint-Tropez in the winter and 2.5 hours in the summer. So, if not more. But and the town nearby, Cavalier, is I call it a prison for tourists.
Oh.
It's they just build one ugly building after the other to pack people in.
Now, was it that way when you first went there?
No, not so much. It was already on its way there because it didn't have the charm of some of the other places like Grimaud and Gassin that are nearby that are very nice, like you'd see in Italy, or those kind of towns that have been well maintained by the people that have moved there.
Yeah.
No, it's very commercial. And we're lucky that we have, there's a little tunnel on the way into the hamlet, which used to be a narrow gauge railway. And, you can go there in silence. You don't hear anything. In the spring, you hear the nightingales singing night and day. But it's a place I really have a hard time leaving. You can ask her. She almost has to drag me away sometimes.
Yes.
But
is there any of your work there? Is it anywhere near whales
well,
at that point?
Yeah, there are. They're right offshore from where the house is, and it would have driven my mother crazy to know that I did work there on whales. She had passed away by then, and because she always said, "Why do you have to work so far?" How mothers are, but about that. So, and I remember one time we were working with we're Wildlife Fund on finback whales and sperm whales, and it was a project for the Ligurian Sea region, and I remember we were going by the house, and just off the shore, I called up my father. He came out on the terrace and saw us go by.
Wow.
So that was kind of fun. But it was a lot of fun. We made some very good friends working there. I mean, it was ridiculous. We were out in this nice catamaran. We had an inflatable. We had great meals just off of the French, the Riviera, and it was very pleasant. You couldn't ask for anything better. The water was warm, we found whales, and I was there to help them put satellite tags on. We did that for 2 or 3 years, and then I think the project continued on for a while. Mostly, one stint in June or July, and then another one in the fall. So. But that was a nice change of pace. Plus, I had the station going, which takes up a lot of time. When you create something that you don't realize you're creating.
Yes.
When I first went up there, I was just planning to do what I really hoped to do for at least 1 month in my life.
This is Mingan Island?
Yeah, and it's now the 46th season.
Yes.
So, but what's been fun is all the people that have come through there, all the people that have given their time and energy to the project, and and there's a very good team there now that's probably going to have to carry on at some point without me being very present, which is fine.
Sure.
I've been trying to extract myself little by little, but I often think that when you create something for which there's a lot of passion to do, it's like a child that never goes away to school or to college. It's always at home. And now I think it's more like an umbilical cord which is made of Kevlar.
Oh.
You can't cut it. So, but it's it's been a lot of fun for the most part. The only drag is to always having to find funds and things like that. But, we've been creative, like this thing with Nik, trying to raise funds in different ways. And it's worked out. And it's much more solid now than it was 10 years ago. So,
so just for our audience who are listening, I'm going to read your bio at the beginning of all this. But if you can sort of the Coles notes for somebody who knows nothing about sort of the work, the people who are listening, they know that you're a whale mammalogist, a marine mammalogist who specializes
or cetologist.
In baleen whale. I'll let you say it. I'll stop saying it.
No, it's fine. But
give us the Coles notes on what defines your work.
Yeah, it's marine biology, but with a focus on marine mammals. And in our case, it's mostly the cetaceans and particularly the larger baleen whales. And we were known mostly for the work on blue whales in the first years, but we also work on finbacks, minkies, and humpback whales.
And baleens are the ones that filter, right?
Yeah, they have different kinds of dentition. They don't. There's really only one or only two species that are filter feeders, and that's the right whale, which is now very present in the St. Lawrence due to climate change, most likely.
Okay.
And those and the bowhead whale in the Arctic, and those two species will filter plankton. Literally, they'll skim along at the surface or below the surface in patches of copepods, little critters. And whereas the other species, the blue whale will eat something a little bit bigger called euphausid, or commonly called krill. They won't generally eat, as far as we know, they don't eat fish unless it's by mistake. One might go in once in a while. But and then the finbacks, the humpbacks, the minkies, they can switch from herring to krill to squid, even mackerel, things like that.
And they're still baleen whales?
Yep. You got to think of the baleen whales as gulpers more than filter feeders. They as opposed to dolphins and sperm whales or any of the odontocetes that go after individual prey and either bite at it or suck it in, vacuum it in. Baleen whales will locate a patch of food, and it's pretty amazing when you think about it. They open up the whole front of their body wide open, and it means that they're pushing the ocean. It's not just a little local patch of water. They're pushing against the whole ocean. So you can imagine the musculature and the strength of the bone structure and muscles, tendons, ligaments that they have to do this over and over again for easily 60 years, probably more. 80 years wouldn't, I think. I just found out this morning there's a humpback whale that's back as of yesterday. We call Siam, is a male that has been seen in the St. Lawrence since 1978.
Wow.
So that animal's been able to survive human.
That's almost the beginning of your...
Well, it was at the beginning. It was actually a year before. I first went up there in '76, but I was working on salmon, and the director allowed me to use a boat that was there to go offshore and look at whales. But it was a very cursory thing. And so, on the other hand, there's another humpback that showed up this year. Well, actually, that was even seen last fall, quite emaciated. And it's a female we've known since she was a calf, so she's not that old. And she's been quite important as far as producing offspring. And now she looks in trouble. She's very, very thin. And when you see that there are other humpbacks that are there, it's not a question of finding food because the others are. So my thinking, and we won't know till we do a necropsy, is that probably she's ingested some plastic bag or something. They have different chambers of their stomach, so maybe at the narrowing between the chambers, something has blocked the passage of food, and this is causing her to lose weight to a point where there's a good chance that she'll die. So they've seen her once this year, and they haven't seen her since, so who knows.
Do you become attached to these animals in some way? I mean, it's work, it's...
Yes and no. I mean, I'm always glad when we see an animal come back, because it means that they've survived another year in the human world. let's put it that way. And but I can't say that I'm overly sentimental about it. I mean, you get very excited when you see some animals that are like some of the humpbacks. They're curious about us for some odd reason, and anywhere in the world it seems. And they come over the boat and check you out, and sometimes want to touch you and things like that.
How do they touch you?
Well, with their flipper, but you try to avoid that.
Yeah.
But I remember one time I was in 15-foot boat, and we had this humpback called Nik. She was a cat. We had known her since she was a calf, so her mother had brought her over to the boat, so she was well aware of what these objects were, and probably thought there was. I don't know if they perceive that there's something alive and something not alive, but I bet they do. And because they'll stick their head out and look right at you, and stuff like that. So I was lying down at the stern of the boat watching her, and I turned away for a second, and I turned back, and the flipper went by right here, and I went whoop, and then she went back towards the stern, and on the motor she touched the motor and she did chook, chook, like this, and one of the barnacles on the end of her flipper left 3 little marks on the motor cover. So I was glad she didn't do that to my face. In general, they're very, very gentle animals. This winter, we were able to go down to the Caribbean to Silver Bank, where the humpbacks go to give birth and breed. And it's amazing because you see these huge females in 30 feet of water, just neutrally buoyant, not, just sitting there watching their calves. And the calf's hiding underneath the mother, but it's curious, it sees these weird things that it hasn't, everything's new in its environment, but it sees these things at the surface, doing this, making noise, and, and the calf will come because it has to breathe a little more often than the mother, and the calf will pop out and head right towards you. I mean, just coming up,
what is that?
And it's coming to look at you, and then it'll just stop a little bit short, but they're not quite as adroit, so you got to sort of be careful. And so when you see that, these animals are amazing the way they're not really aggressive with us. If we do something to annoy them, they'll let us know. They'll beat the tail on the surface or the flippers will hit the water, or they'll jump out, breach. But in that context, that mother she'd probably already seen it, so she was very much at ease with the situation. Everybody was holding their position. They weren't chasing after the calf. But it's really underwater that you should be seeing them. That's where they live. And to have those occasions to do that, it's really fantastic, because when you're working on them from the surface, it's sort of like looking at an iceberg. You see the back and a little bit of the dorsal fin, sometimes a little more, and then they're gone after maybe a minute and a half, 2 minutes breathing at the surface. Sometimes they might be resting there. And then in the case of blue whales or finbacks, they might show up a kilometer away the next time.
So do you get into submersibles? Do you get underwater to?
No, that's just when you can go down. Silverbank, they have 3 permits and they can take people out. I worked there years ago. But I took a group of people that had been with me in the Azores. They wanted me to take them to this spot, so a lot of those people had never done this before. And I knew the operator of the trip quite well, and knew that he did things properly, and so it worked out fantastically. I mean, sometimes you get a week of wind and you can't see much, but this year we had a very good week.
So when you talk about them being curious and trying to touch you and check it out,
they don't do that all the time.
No. But what level of, do you define consciousness in these creatures? Are there stages of consciousness that we apply towards mammals?
I think there's much more consciousness in animals in general than we give them credit for, because we're kind of arrogant humans. And I mean, birds certainly are very conscious of what they're doing. I mean, there was a good line in a book I just read where, the person said, well, don't forget, if we're watching animals, other animals, they're watching us.
Absolutely.
And they learn our habits. And they know that these people will do things. So a deer might know that it can go by the house or something to a certain point. And birds do the same thing, especially when you look at crows. They watch what's going on, and they know what to do about it. And even a thing like an octopus watches what they have to. They have to be aware of what's around them, because that's how they survive. And but certainly other mammals,
I mean, I'm talking about scenarios where you hear about a group of elephants traveling over a long distance because a human died that they had interaction with at one point in time. I mean, and I've seen a video of a lady who removes hooks from sharks, fishermen's hooks, and apparently
from dolphins.
The sharks would bring other sharks to her, and she removes the hooks from these sharks' mouths.
Yeah, I don't know. I know of people that do that. I know dolphins will stick around afterwards, sort of like to thank. And I know humpbacks that get caught in nets will start breaching afterwards away from the boat, sort of like people interpret it the way they want, but they make it. It seems to them that the whale's happy at that moment or whatever.
But you seem skeptical about that.
Well, you never know. We don't know what's in their minds. We at best we know what they prefer to do. We know what they prefer not to have around them. They don't like noise, and we're a very noisy species, and we're very noisy in the oceans where sound travels much faster than in air.
Yes.
So and further. So. I don't pretend to be able to think I know what these animals are thinking. I mean, I think sometimes they show curiosity for whatever reason.
Yes.
What you might say, if a bunch of humpbacks are talking to each other, they might go, why do these things come and look at us?
Right.
They don't know what we're thinking. They don't know what we're doing. I mean, maybe they figured out that, well, they stuck something in me once. It was kind of annoying, like a mosquito bite, when I take a biopsy. But, I've shot biopsies into these animals, and 15 minutes later, the whale's next to the boat. So it's like, it's like us walking through a field and we get a little burr on our leg or something.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I interpret it. Maybe they're more annoyed than I think.
Right.
But
they're just more gracious.
Yeah. Well, they certainly are, because if we treated each other the way they do, I mean, apart from when there's mating, the males go after each other and they do beat the living daylights out of each other sometimes. I mean, headbutts, flipper, but the rest of the time they sort of collaborate or, you don't know what they're saying to each other, but they can communicate over wide distance. Like, for instance, a blue whale can be in a pair with another one. Usually it's a female followed by a male, that we know. But you might have 10 blue whales or finbacks in a given area, which may seem large to you because our scale is different from theirs. And I like to use the example which your son will understand, and you will, because you've all been in Europe, but you can imagine sitting on the terrace in the Champs-Élysées, which I wouldn't do because there's too many tourists, but you could imagine. And you could see two people walking, and it appears as though those two people are walking in synchrony. They're in the same step and they're walking along the Champs-Élysées, but they don't know each other. They just happen to be walking at the same pace at that time, or they could know each other, but let's just say a lot of them. And then you could have a situation where most people wouldn't notice it, but there could be one person on one side of the Champs-Élysées and one on the other side, which is quite wide, and they're both looking for the same thing, and they're together and they're signaling to each other.
Right.
But to most people, you wouldn't notice that.
Know. Yeah, that brings up two topics I actually did want to discuss with you, and one is scale, which I find fascinating because we're talking about the largest creature on our planet. But the other one is actually I'm very interested in the physics of sound, and I recently was listening to a physicist name of Helen. Give me a second here. Helen Chersky, who is working as an oceanographer on bubbles specifically.
It's vaguely sounds familiar, but
she's written two books. One is called The Blue Machine, which is more recent.
That's right. That's why I know. I'm reading it right now.
I told you about it when we spoke on the phone a few weeks ago. Maybe you already had it.
No, I had it already.
You had it already. Okay.
I'm reading it. It's in the bathroom.
I've ordered it. I don't have it. I haven't read it yet, but I have it.
It's good. She makes a few missteps with marine mammals, but that's because she's not specializing.
Right. Well, honestly, it wasn't about the marine mammals for me. It was that she mentioned the Heard Island experiment?
Yeah, except the heat, measuring the temperature of the oceans. Yeah.
Yes.
I remember that well.
And from her, I learned the concept of the horizontal layers of the ocean, and that.
Well, and the circulation around the planet.
Right.
Yeah.
Can you tell me something about that?
I'm not an oceanographer.
No, I know that, but you're talking about whales. How far can the whales communicate, and are they communicating? Are they leveling to a certain space?
Well, Roger Payne, who's left us last year, Roger Payne thought that these animals could probably communicate if everything was right, that the SOFAR channel was just perfect, and the whales were in the receiving.
Is that what we call it?
Yeah. Well, she talks about it in her book, and I can't remember what it stands for at the moment, but anyway, so. It depends on the density of the water and the temperature of the water and all that. And so Roger thought that these animals could perhaps communicate over thousands of miles. Now, is that true or not? I don't know. But of course, the other whale receiving the sounds has to be in exactly the right position. It can't be diving for food at that moment or whatever.
Yes.
So, but on the one thing I really like talking about scale is that humans were very, I probably shouldn't use the word lazy, but we're very sedentary in the way we do a lot of work. In other words, we wait for animals to show up where we are to learn about them. And over time, we've learned that certain spots, like in the St. Lawrence, is where these animals go. But things have changed. They're not coming, to those areas as much anymore. For instance, in Mingan, we've had a severe drop in the last 3 summers of finbacks. If we see any, we might not see more than 5, whereas in the past we'd see 10, 20, up to 60 in a day at the end of the summer. So you have to really look at how these animals make use of the expanse that they live in, the oceans, and they use whole ocean basins, if not multiple basins. I mean, for instance, there's a gray whale that has shown up twice now, one last year off Florida and this spring off of New England. Now, there are no gray whales in the Atlantic, south, north, or south. So where did this whale come from? Well, did it come through the north? Did it come around South America or Africa? To come into the Atlantic, and is it stuck in the Atlantic? Is it finding food? Apparently it seemed to be in good shape. So these animals will always surprise you. The minute you think you've got them in a box, they're not. They're trying out different things just the way we do. And I've gotten to the point where, because I've spent so much time going from land out onto the water, I realize we're doing it completely backwards. We should be looking from offshore in, because these animals, when they come in to where we are, they're coming from way out someplace or along the coast, and they decide to come into the St. Lawrence, sort of like an elk going up in the mountains to a pasture that they know. They come in, they detect something in the water, the right conditions for productivity of fish or euphausiids. And we're lucky enough that where we happen to have noticed whales, whether it be here or in the Sea of Cortez or along coastal areas, that these animals come into shallow waters in the summer months to feed, because that's where a lot of productivity goes on, like the Grand Banks or things like that. And even so, there's so many areas in the St. Lawrence where we don't see what's going on. Using satellite tags, we do learn about how they move and so forth. But these animals we now know that finbacks and blue whales will use the whole damn ocean basin to during the different parts of the year. Like a finback was tracked with a tag for, I think, 122 days, and it left the St. Lawrence where it was tagged, and it went outside of Bermuda, so towards the mid-Atlantic ridge, and it went down almost to the Caribbean, and there aren't any seamounts really down where it was, which can be an area of productivity. And then it came back towards Florida, the Florida coast, and then it came right back up to Nova Scotia. And it stayed there during some of the winter months where presumably there was food, because you have mixing of the Gulf Stream with the cold waters and so on. But I think it's important to realize that these animals can be in so many different places. I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, in a way, marine animals don't have the barriers that the animals in Africa have, where humans have parceled off the land for farms. And otherwise, I mean, they've been able to reopen some of it so that the wildebeest and others have the migration that they've had. But I mean, if you look at what the land animals, how much they move, or if you look at birds, like there's a bird called the banded godwit that summers in Alaska, amongst other places. And when they migrate south, they fly nonstop to New Zealand, nonstop. This is a shorebird. And what they do is they're able to shrink the organs that they're not using. Like they're not feeding, so they don't need the digestive tract as much, so they shrink it down. They keep the heart, the brain, lungs. But to think that a bird that size can make it in one shot to New Zealand
without feeding?
Without feeding.
Are they gliding? Are they
well, they probably find a right place for currents and so forth, but it's not always perfect. And so they have to use their muscles to fly. And by the time they get to New Zealand, they probably need to eat fast. But, and they're turtles, leatherback turtles that have been, that are born in Papua New Guinea, and they show up off the coast of California or Oregon. There's all kinds of migrations.
Cedar Creek Custom Case Shop is your premier fretted instrument custom case maker, and we invite you to create a musical instrument case unlike any other, one that's unique to you. Every Cedar Creek custom case is hand-built by highly skilled craftspeople using only select woods, Providence Forge hardware, and premium instrument-friendly materials. At Cedar Creek Custom Case Shop, we are dedicated to helping you design the case of your dreams. Find out more at cedarcreekcases.com.
Humpbacks in the Pacific that have been seen in Hawaii have also been seen off of the Ogasawara Islands off Japan. It's not many of them, but they're capable of doing it. That's the point. And so I think we need to broaden our view of how these animals use this expanse that they live in. And it's certain that they're going to places where they want to find food, but they also might go to other places to give birth or to socialize. Socialization goes on probably on the feeding grounds a lot, as well as breeding grounds. And
when did you come to this? I mean, you're talking about a 180 flip here, right?
No, it's been over time. I just got sort of frustrated with our way of doing things and realizing, I remember this guy, Jim Darling, who's been working on humpbacks in Hawaii and been working off of, he lives in Tofino. And when he came years ago with another friend of mine, Flip Nicklin, who was a National Geographic story, and he came out with us offshore of Mingan, and he goes, "You guys always go out this far?" And I said, "Yeah." And because he was so used to working on gray whales that were just beyond the surf line, he hadn't really thought, or it hadn't really come to him to go further off. He didn't need to. Well, when he got home, he started going further offshore, and then he started finding other animals. And so you can get trapped into your own behavioral modes. And I think you need to always be re-evaluating what you're doing. I mean, ideally, satellite tags aren't they're not the panacea. They fall out sometimes after 10 days, or they might last a month. We get sometimes lucky to have several months. But ideally, you'd have very wealthy people with yachts, most of which sit in Monte Carlo or Antibes and do nothing, And you do have occasionally people that allow their yachts to be used to go to the Antarctic to do research. But otherwise you can't afford to go out. It's very expensive to go way offshore, and these animals are often beyond the shelf edge.
Yeah.
So you have to be out there, and you're looking. It's sort of like needle in a haystack. It's a big ocean, so you have to establish some transects or some pattern of work that area that you're going to cover. I suspect that with satellite imaging that's coming along, and it's getting less expensive, and you need very powerful computers to analyze these. There's actually an ex-team member who's got a company that's doing that, and I think that will help immeasurably. And we can, some of the images I've seen from satellites, you can tell the species now, and on right whales, because they have funny structures on their heads, you might be able to identify some individuals, if not from that, but by the scar pattern, because every right whale has got scars on it from net gear, from fishing gear or ship strikes.
Okay.
And there's only 360 of them left. Well, on this side, and hardly any on the other side of the Atlantic. So they're in very bad shape in the Northern Hemisphere. Southern Hemisphere, they're doing much better. But when you see these poor animals, and last summer we've had 40 different identifications of individuals, so we probably had 50 or more came through the area, but every one of them has a scar. And the humpbacks in the St. Lawrence, about 85% of those have scars on them that can be from collision or net, fishing gear. So we have a tremendous impact as well. Even in this expanse, if you're offshore along the eastern seaboard, you have ships. A lot of noise. That's a problem for these animals. They're acoustic beings. And not just for marine mammals, for fish as well. And then once they get into a place like the St. Lawrence or the Gulf of Maine, then they have to deal with fishing gear, still ship strikes, warming of the water, food chain disruption. In other words, like what we've done with the cod, we've pretty much wiped it out. Now there's a little bit of a resurgence where they allow the fishermen to fish for a few days. So, all that kind of stuff is what these animals are having to deal with. Plus, I'm not even talking about the pollutants, that goes gaily down the St. Lawrence. From a city like Montreal, from the medications we take for whatever things that ail us, that all goes through us right back into the system, and there's no sewage treatment for that yet. It just goes into the St. Lawrence. So just think about all that going on, and these animals are eating food that's further up the food chain that can ingest some of these things. Anyway.
And you've seen that change during your career. Is it headed in the right direction?
Well, what I've seen lately,
is it getting worse?
What I've seen lately worries me, because first of all, the right whales really made a move to come out of the Gulf of Maine to the Gulf of St. Lawrence. We used to see maybe 4 or 5. I think one year we had maybe 16 a few years ago, which was probably a precursor to what's happening now. But now at Mingan, we're studying right whales more than we are the other species that I started studying. I mean, we're monitoring, I should say. And that's amazing to me. My colleagues in New England were always talking about right whales, and now I see what they used to see. They don't see it in the Bay of Fundy anymore. We see courtship groups and things like that. And whereas the finbacks and even minke whales, which are quite common, have decreased in, I wouldn't say real numbers, they're not necessarily dead, they're just moved to another place because they're not seemingly finding what they need. And even when they're there, these animals aren't residing in the places that they where we used to see them for a longer period of time. They're there one day and then gone. We've had a few blue whales go by off Setil recently, but they're not staying there long. Maybe not even 24 hours, and then they're moving on someplace else. And we're not even seeing them in Mingan, so they're probably heading back south into the Ongato-Laurentian Channel and maybe out again. And you know, you have to remember these animals have a memory the way we do. They know where they're going to find things. They know where this could be a good place to feed. So they'll still come back in hoping to find a spot where they were able to feed adequately.
See if it's come back.
And when they don't find it, it's not going to wait around for somebody to serve up some krill. They're going to move someplace else, you know, and hope to find something.
Yeah, and their offspring won't learn it as a good food source in the same way the parents might have.
Yeah, they won't. Yeah, they might not if they have offspring. They because we've only seen 34 blue whale calves in 46 years.
Really?
Yeah, but. So we started saying, okay, is that because the females don't come in the St. Lawrence with the calves?
Yeah.
Well, people often that work on marine mammals off Nova Scotia and Newfoundland have not seen any either. People in New England haven't seen calves either. So where are they? I just think that they have a reproductive problem. We had one summer about 4 or 5 years ago where we had all of a sudden a boom for blue whales. We had 7 calves.
Right.
Which was amazing.
Sure.
Is it because they're weaned earlier and we don't notice it? But we don't see juveniles really. We see we've had one of the animals that we knew as a calf come back. None of the others. That doesn't mean they haven't survived. Just whereas humpbacks can. You know, if you include Blanc Sablon and other areas of St. Lawrence, you might see easily 10 to 15 calves in a season. And if I look at blue whales in the Azores, we've already, in much less effort, we're only there for 3 weeks over a long period of time, but we've already had many, many more calves. So that population on the eastern North Atlantic seems to be doing quite well.
Yes.
At least compared to these here.
Right.
So what is going to happen as these animals die off? I mean, we do see new animals, so they've got to be producing them someplace.
Yeah.
But it's not that many. You know, and already this year, if we were to have seen calves, we would have seen them by now, because we would have seen them in May or June or July.
Yeah.
We haven't. By now, they could be getting closer to being weaned.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So one of the reasons I like talking with people from different disciplines is to sort of see the connections, the greater lessons that we learn. You know, what is it from doing your work? How do you think it affects your view of the world that others might not?
Well,
sort of see.
I used to be
too grand of a question.
I used to be much more optimistic. I've gotten to the point where I think that we're really buggering things up.
Okay.
And I don't really see us stopping when I watch, and then when I see what the political leaders, especially Carrot Top in the United States and others.
Carrot Top's running for president?
Yeah. You know, not that Carrot Top, but
that would be much more interesting to me,
it might be, but the one with the fake hair. I mean, if that guy gets in, and with all the other right-wing types, it's not just bad for the country, it's bad for the planet. I remember when, was it Voyager, the spacecraft, was leaving our solar system, and it took a picture back of the Earth, and you see this black expanse of the universe, and you see this little tiny speck that's kind of, you imagine, blinking green and blue. And I said, that's the only place that we're certain that there's life in this whole expanse. And we're destroying it. I mean, does that make a lot of sense? No. And so, I'm a little bit, I'm a lot less, I don't even know if optimistic is the word, but I'm a lot less at ease with what is, how we're going about things on the planet. I often think that if you take off from a city in a plane at night and you look down and you look at all the lights moving, we look sort of like the tendrils of a virus spreading out from the center. And there's that old joke that if all the other animals on the planet could vote one off, which one would it be? I think we know which one that would be. But you still want to try to do, but by collecting information, data on these animals, you increase little by little the amount of knowledge on these animals, and also because they're sort of flagship animals, they're sort of standard bearers for what goes on in an ecosystem. It's important. But when you start seeing what we've seen in the last 3 years, and I'm hoping that that's just an anomaly, or that it's something that happened. But I really fear that this whole time that I've been, had the station and people working there and stuff, is that we were sort of like watching the frog in a glass of water that's slowly heating up, and the frog doesn't notice it till it's boiled. And I think that probably all these things that we've been doing has just been accumulating, and it's been in little increments, and we haven't noticed it that much. And then we may have gotten to a point where things are just now starting to slide down the steep slope. I hope it's not that, but I have the uneasy feeling that might be the case. That's the best way to put it, I think.
And what would the counter argument be to that?
The counter argument?
Yeah. What would the people who would disagree with you say?
I don't even want to imagine it.
You don't know? Okay.
The counter argument would be that we're all just a bunch of pointy heads and collecting our data, and that we have tunnel vision on this stuff, and we're not. But you can see it just in Legault here. When he talks about environment, it's almost like it's paralyzing part of his mouth. And then the next word he says, well, we need development, we need jobs, and we need another bridge or tunnel in Quebec City, and things like that. And as long as there are people like that running things or influencing things, I don't think we're going to do that well. We all are seduced, and I include myself, by the technology and this AI business and all this stuff that's coming along. But I think that either we're going to arrive at something where the machines take over, or we destroy our habitat.
Yeah.
You look at the fires that are going on. You look at what the things how we're heating up. The St. Lawrence, according to Galbraith, an oceanographer at Fisheries in Montreal, in the last 20 years, the midwater, not surface, midwater temperature has gone up by 2.5 degrees Celsius. That is enormous in the body of water like the St. Lawrence or the oceans. And it's just probably going to accelerate. So when you have changes like that, it affects everything in the food chain. I'm not sure there is a counter argument. It's a fact. I'm perhaps tragically optimistic. In just the ability, in the way that I think that our habits do change, and there are people who are working on solutions. And I remember as a child, getting off a highway and seeing litter everywhere because people just threw cups out and the smokers still do it. Right? It's a pet peeve of mine. Smokers are the only people left in our culture who think it's okay to throw shit out the window. Not all smokers, let's say, but did you see the trucks
if we see anything thrown out the window, it's a cigarette butt. Unfortunately, it used to be coffee cups and bags and everything else.
Well, I've seen people dump trash bags right out the window of their car.
It's pretty rare now.
It's rare, but it happens. And then if you go to the Mediterranean, you see people dumping stuff over the side. It's the biggest garbage dump is an ocean. You can't go from the south of France to Corsica without seeing a piece of plastic in every cubic meter of the surface.
Really?
And when you get a wind from the east, from Italy, you get all the beach balloons coming our way. I mean, we've picked up so many fenders that we can outfit a marina. And new ones, not stuff that's been at sea for, you know. So, I hope it's not. I mean, I'm still able to. I'm not that down that I'm not able to function and try to do stuff. It's not what I'm saying. But you asked me what my feelings were from watching what I've been watching and what I read also, and it's. It worries me. That's probably the best way to put it. You know, just when we talk about it, because Evelyne's involved a lot with she's been involved with plastics and the islands of plastics in the ocean, and just the amount of plastic that we have. I mean, we were in a food store the other day, Avril, which is supposed to be kind of a health food store, I guess, or it was. And the amount of packaging was just astounding.
Yes.
And we all have it. We all have plastic, and we feel good because we can put it in the blue bin and dump it in another blue bin and put it by the side of the road. But I really think that we need to rethink the way that we do all that stuff.
I wouldn't disagree with you. I just think that we actually are. Now there's something fascinating about the power of the planet and how fast things happen. We think our effects are very permanent, and you've seen things that I have not. But I don't know if you watched, there was a documentary that happened post-pandemic where there was all this footage taken that within a very short time of the pandemic, when humans stopped moving about, all of a sudden the animals came back in, nature reclaims things. Like, it's shocking, actually, if you don't weed somewhere, to see how fast a plant will take over your pavement stone, and break it in half. It's amazing. Well,
that happened
the power of the earth.
It happened in the Mediterranean. There was no noise. There's a band of noise because in the summer, looking out the window from our place, you can see 30 boats at any time.
Yes, yes.
And they're not all sailboats.
Right.
So, but there were finbacks that came in close to shore. And I've been there in November where there are very few boats. And all of a sudden one day we were sitting on the terrace and I heard a spout and I go, I'm going out of my mind. I'm not hearing a spout. And two finback whales just beyond this rock where Evelyn and I swim to. Yeah. And, it doesn't happen often, but there they were because there weren't myriad vessels going by making noise. Yeah. So I agree. I mean, Mingan, they used to take the puffin eggs and razorbill eggs, and then when they stopped doing that, when I first got there were still maybe 20 pairs of puffins on one island. Now they're on 2 or 3 islands, and they're even on the outhouse Parks Canada on that one island. Yeah. And you can walk up to them almost. They just sort of look at you, Right. And they've come back, and the razorbills have come back. So if you do leave things alone, the problem is I'm not sure that we leave enough alone.
Right. I think, it's probably going to require a longer period. I was recently talking.
We don't have that much time.
No, I understand. I did tell you perhaps tragically optimistic, right? So that was the caveat from the beginning. I was recently talking with a acoustician who works in architecture, and he had worked on I think it was St. Luke's Cathedral in London, which had sat empty for 100 years. And they leased it to the London Symphony Orchestra, 100-year lease. In the New World, we have a very hard time imagining anyone leasing anything for 100 years. How do you make the profit on that is how we would think of that typically, right? And so, but he helped redo the acoustics on the inside of it to make it suitable as the rehearsal space for the London Symphony Orchestra. And so this older building was preserved. My son Zach lives in Strasbourg, and the cathedral there was the tallest building in the world for 300 or 400 years, and it took 300 or 400 years to build the cathedral in the first place. And there's this idea of time that when things were built by perhaps a church or a monarch, where you built it for a family or for a state, we understood that it was okay if we start something that your grandchildren's grandchildren were going to finish.
Yeah, well,
so it may be that kind of work that I'm required to be optimistic about. But when I see the power of the earth and the fact that we are changing our habits, I remain optimistic.
Yeah, but there's a good joke to go along with something. There's an American who arrives in Paris and he goes, okay, time is money. Show me around the city. I want to see all the sights, real quick. So they drive him in front of Notre Dame and they say, well, it took so many whatever years it took to build that. And he goes, oh yeah, well, with our know-how in the United States, it might have taken 10 years or something, And then they go on to the Louvre and they say, well, that took this amount of time. And the guy goes, yeah, with our know-how, that might have been blah, 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 And so they keep driving around Paris. And then the American goes, what's that? And the taxi driver goes, I don't know. It wasn't there yesterday. It's the Eiffel Tower. So, yeah, things tend to be a little bit more. I mean, you can go to it.
The Eiffel Tower is a fantastic example because it was only meant to be up for a short period of time.
That's true.
And we've kept it for almost 100 years now.
But what fascinated me was going to the Marché aux Puces in Porte de Clichy.
No, it's all good. Keep going.
In the Porte de Clichy, and you can get all the usual junk, sneakers, and whatever. But there were stands selling pieces of stonework from Napoleon III period. When Haussmann, built or designed Paris, and there were pieces of stone you could buy to replace pieces of stone on your building if you needed to.
Right.
And that's in a flea market.
Yes.
I thought it was fantastic. You wouldn't see that in the United States,
No.
I mean, it's sort of like the guy who thought he was buying the Tower Bridge and he was buying the London Bridge and he had it rebuilt in Arizona and he was very disappointed because it wasn't the bridge he thought he was going to get. But
there's a guitar maker I know, named Michael Spalt, who's Viennese, and he is an assemblage artist within the guitar. His guitars are full of objects and resin and such, and he spends his time scouring the markets of Vienna or wherever he's visiting. He lives in the south of Portugal now, but he's always finding and to us those would be in our national museums, those pieces, because they're old enough.
You're right. I mean, look when Notre Dame burned, they were having they had to go and find some old, some stone workers who still knew how to do that. And luckily they still do have some people that know that. But
and that's changing quickly.
It is.
Yeah, we visited a church in the Alps in Italy that was built in the 1970s as part of there was a disaster, the Violent Dam disaster. The mountain came crashing into the water from the dam and sent a 600-foot tidal wave out through the Alps, and it wiped out the village of Longarone. Years later, they rebuilt the church, and Michelucci, the famous architect, was brought in to make a church there. But playing on this idea of the church and the water and the ship, he brought in shipwrights, and to make the wood construction, and it's all bent. It's this swirling object with sort of a wave-like structure happening on top of it. And I was there with one of the civil engineers who studied under the engineer who built it. And he talked about all of this, the shipwrights who know how to bend the wood and get these types of movements, that they probably don't exist now.
Sounds as though they were building the Ark.
Yeah, kind of. Yes. But we've lost those skills, and same thing, looking for masons who could actually remake Notre Dame.
Look at, speaking of guitars, look at what's happening to the woods. You can't find, if you find a guitar with Cocobolo in it, like one of my Goodalls, it's very rare or very, very expensive.
Yes.
Not to mention Brazilian rosewood.
Yeah.
And now they're using all kinds of other woods, which I'm not sure if they're tonally as good as what can be used, but maybe, I don't know. Haven't played, what is it, Blackwood or something?
Yeah, there's all sorts of many woods out there that, that's a materials conversation, which is the reason I was actually speaking with the acoustician, because I'm personally of the opinion that it's less about the materials and more about how we work the materials, which is why I'm interested in the physics.
But there are some woods with the grain, like for pianos and so forth, that are just in the right,
But it's form follows production. We built the sound of the instrument around the materials in which we were using. We could shape them differently if the material is different. The mistake is when we take the form and just replace the material without making any structural changes.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember talking to a piano tuner, and he was really adamant about 16, 17-year-old wood
Yes.
Being used for pianos. And it was a long time ago, but we had a long discussion about it.
Yeah.
And I've talked to some luthiers who feel the same way about certainly Adirondack spruce, things like that, or European spruce.
Yes.
And then, of course, Nik had to put a little tiny bit of Brazilian rosewood in his Blue Whale guitar, and that's what messed
part of
up
what it
everything.
made it special.
Yeah, this one made it very special for 8 years. God.
So let's talk about that for just a second, because to bring people in, this is called Life with Strings Attached, because I find that my work in the guitar, I just meet people that I should otherwise have no business in meeting. Like I met you 12 years ago. It must have been around this time because the Montreal Jazz Festival was on.
Yeah,
we were here during
probably.
A show which is, by the way, in our industry is regarded as one of the great shows. We're all sad that there is no longer a Montreal Guitar Show because it really was one of the best in the world.
Yeah, it was fun.
And it was this interaction with Nik Huber where you saw his inlays of dolphins and orcas.
It wasn't just that. I mean, his guitars were really pretty to look at,
Sure.
Without
if they were
playing
ugly
it.
with dolphins, you probably wouldn't have stopped.
Well, I mean, I just remember because it was the first time I had been in the electric guitar section. And there were some electric guitars that were, I would say, nicely, kind of funky, square things and, but Nik has an aesthetic which I enjoy.
Yeah.
And I like the way he went about it. And plus, as we said earlier, he's very affable and he's an easy person to talk to. And, we had a fun conversation. I think that even later in the day, I was standing behind his stand while he went to the bathroom or something.
Sounds like Nik. Yeah.
But Sue and I were standing there talking about his guitars.
Yeah.
Probably not very efficiently. But anyway.
Cedar Creek Custom Case Shop is your premier fretted instrument custom case maker, and we invite you to create a musical instrument case unlike any other, one that's unique to you. Every Cedar Creek custom case is hand-built by highly skilled craftspeople using only select woods, Providence Forge hardware, and premium instrument-friendly materials. At Cedar Creek Custom Case Shop, we are dedicated to helping you design the case of your dreams. Find out more at cedarcreekcases.com.
Yeah, no, I think that I think it was a very interesting meeting Nik, and I'm glad we were able to do what we did. I mean, it helped us, and
which was
you're
talking to me in a familiar way, but for our
what Nik decided when I half jokingly said, "Let's do a Blue Whale guitar," and he right away said, "Yeah, let's do it." Then I got him a drawing from Daniel Grenier, who actually lives just down a few minutes away from here, the artist who's done a lot of the murals in our museum at Mingan, and Daniel had done some drawings of blue whales, and he wanted a cow-calf, and so I got that to Nik, and then he told me he used about 180 pieces to do the inlay work.
Yes.
And then when I saw the guitar, I mean, it was an absolute beauty. I mean, you could tell that he was a student of Paul Reed Smith's.
Yes.
The guitar was, and I even got to play it. I sometimes regret that I had it sent down with Sue to that store in Ontario to sell it, because it might have stayed here all that time, but it wouldn't have been much use for the station.
Sure.
But what happened is that Nik had convinced me, and I shouldn't have been easily convinced, that we didn't need an import CITES permit, which we did, and he had an export one because of his experience at NAMM. He didn't have to go through that for some reason.
I see.
And so, but the odd thing was that guitar was delivered here.
Yeah.
No fuss, no muss. It arrived by plane. No tax, no duty, nothing. A truck just brought it and it was delivered.
Interesting.
And then after that, so to speak, hit the fan.
Yeah.
And the guy at the store in Ontario was doing his due diligence, and he noticed that there was Brazilian rosewood and that there wasn't a import permit, and so he had to tell the people in Environment Canada, the enforcement people, and they got involved, and they talked to me, and then they realized that we hadn't done it, with ill intent.
Yes.
And the guy said, well, we'll release the guitar back to you. But the CITES people, also part of that, couldn't find a way to do it.
Right.
They spent months looking at every which. And so it went on, and I ended up one guy that I had been speaking to passed away, and I had to start again, and I had to I had all the files I kept, keep sending him the stuff. And finally last summer, after 8 years, this guy called me up from the enforcement at Environment, says, okay, we have a way to do this. The guitar can never come back into Canada, but we call it a removal, okay? And so so I did everything he asked very quickly, and then by December, he was the one who packaged it up, took it to the airport, and I had organized with FedEx to ship it back to Nik. And it was on its way. And then in the meantime, I was of course telling Nik what was going on, and Nik said, well, I think I have a buyer for it. And I said, great. And so it worked out in the end. So I wrote a little piece called The Saga of the Blue Whale Guitar for our newsletter.
Yes.
And, because it was. And then plus Nik also had very kindly offered that he made 25 of those guitars. Actually, the one we had was a prototype, or what he'd call a prototype.
Okay.
And each guitar he was going to pay us 2,500 euros, which was, good, very good for us.
Nice donation. Yeah.
And so, that whole thing, he sold all those guitars. People really liked them, from collectors. I think mostly collectors really bought it. And then we built up a fund that was strictly for blue whales from that. And that's what's helping us now to continue to do that work. So it's been very...
that's a substantial chunk of money.
Yeah. Actually, I think technically there's still some bits to come. Some
on their way?
But I don't push it with Nik. And I had a lot of conversations. What was the name of the guy that I always thought they were brothers, because they had exactly the same.
Clemens Huber,
has the same voice.
Yeah.
It's the same, almost exactly the same delivery. And then Clemens left to work.
He's working for Neumann now, the microphone company.
That's
He's still
right.
in the industry.
So, but he was a very nice guy, and Nik seems to be sometimes all over the place. So
Creative types often are.
But he came with his wife to the Azores. And they got to see quite a few blue whales. I still would like it if he would come to Mingan. In August would be a good time, and come out with us.
I heard that. I was jealous.
Well, you could come too, I guess. We have room, But he'll have to take another flight from Paris. That's very possible with the Targa that I have. The boat is quite comfortable for that kind of stuff. So, but someday maybe. But I don't know. He'd better hurry up, because I'm not long for this. I mean,
I'll nudge him.
Good. But what's been funny is that Evelyn keeps asking me when I'm going to retire, and because she just retired last week, and so I was contacted about 2 months ago by a group in Tahiti to come and put satellite tags on humpbacks.
Is that a nicer environment than Mingan Island?
Plus I like it. I've been there. We've been there a few times, but it's a really nice project. They pay everything, So it will be partly on the island of Tahiti and partly in Bora Bora. which is not too shabby.
Right.
So
is my invitation to Mingan transferable to Tahiti?
You'd have to talk to them. I can't speak for them. But what's nice about it, it's from the 15th of September to the 15th of October, so it fits in well with the end of our season. And but to me, that's my riding off in the sunset project.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think after that, the body will say, okay, buddy, that's enough.
Right, right.
So,
okay. Well, sounds like I got here at the right time.
Well,
day after Evelyn's retirement, and just possibly right before yours.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've already pulled back quite a bit, even though she doesn't think it's enough. But I have a really good crew up there, and they're doing a good job. And we have a new Mexican biologist who actually worked in Baja, not with me, but on blue whales, and he's a guy who's moved to Canada with his wife because he didn't want to deal with the cartels anymore. And he's living in Edmonton, so I said, we got to get you out of there. And so he's starting to, he works on the bacterial makeup. Each organism has its own bacteria.
Yes.
And you can tell by how the bacteria is affected, how climate change is affecting those organisms.
Yes, yes.
So and he used a drone to collect spout material to do that. Oh. He's a vet and a PhD.
What do we call it when
the spout?
Yes, but the material.
Well,
we call it a sneeze.
There's mucus in there, but most of it's actually salt water because they atomize the water, they start exhaling before they pass the surface.
Yeah.
So a lot of what you get is salt water. But there's a little bit of nice mucus in there, and you really don't want to know what's in that. But that's one person, and then there's other guy, Rui, from Santos from Portugal, where the more I hear about people moving to Portugal, that place is going to sink. He's doing his PhD on whales in the Azores, but also on blue whales with us. And he's a guy who could help to run things. So I'm sort of going at it by more of a collective after this, because it's very hard to find somebody who wants to work up there the way we do.
Sure. I mean, anybody who builds a substantial career becomes as many corporations have found, they have to replace them with 3 or 10 people, not one typically.
Well, yeah. And I just gave up on that idea because it just became too difficult. But I looked at the people that were there and how devoted they were to the project. And I thought, well, I think this can work like this. So.
Deserves to carry on.
Yeah.
All right. So is there really ever a retirement for you? Or is it a different obsession? Is it a hibiscus venture, or
no,
is it
hibiscus? I'm very happy to be up here and to have 30 more of these hibiscus plants and deal with that. I'm very happy doing that, but we plan on traveling some. So
I love travel. Is there a couple of hot spots for you that you have yet to see?
Oh yeah. I mean, one place I've been to, but more for work, but Evelyn never has been to, is Japan. So next May, we're going to Japan for a while.
Wonderful.
And then we're going
Don't let Evelyn know, but there's a guitar show in Osaka in May. Every year.
Where we're going?
We were just there.
Okay. In Osaka?
In Osaka. We were.
Oh, yeah, we're going to avoid Osaka.
Osaka, okay.
But
short train from Kyoto.
Yeah. Well, we're going to go to Kyoto, but I'm not sure if it's worth seeing. I've been to Osaka. It's kind of another big city.
It is.
Well, basically from Tokyo to Osaka, it's one city. So.
Yeah.
But no, we want to go up to Hokkaido and see that part of the world. And then after that, we're supposed to go diving with whale sharks.
Yes.
And then the group that was with us in Silver Bank wants me to, I'm organizing a trip with Flip Nicklin in Alaska for humpback whales.
Yes.
So that would be another trip.
Right.
And this group of people, they just follow me around now.
Yeah.
And they become great friends, and they help support the research, and
wonderful.
And they get everybody gets along really well, so it's fun.
Yeah. Great. Well,
so
good luck with all that.
Yeah. Well, I can't complain.
Yeah.
I've had a good time doing all this stuff, and it beats having a real job.
I feel the same way. Well, Richard, thank you so much for being on Life with Strings Attached. Thank you for having us here at your lovely hibiscus. What do we call this? Little paradise here. And
Well,
hopefully we meet again.
Okay. Well, push Nik in the rear end to get him to come to Mingan.
You know that's exactly what I do, right?
Yeah. Do you know? Do you by any chance know who Paul Riddick is?
I know the name.
He's a blues.
Oh yeah. He's a blues player from like Toronto area.
Yeah, and he's a good friend of mine and of ours.
We knew a couple of his. We owned a music store. When I met Nik, I was selling his guitars in Toronto, and one of Paul's associate guitar players and his drummer, who also played for Nelly Furtado and a few others, worked for us at the time. That's why I know him. It's been a long time since I heard his name, but he was.
He played at that fundraiser with the guy from Monkey Junk, Mariner, Steve Mariner.
Okay.
And Paul has been up to Mingan. He still hasn't been out in the water because every time he's come, it's been bad weather. But I'm trying to get him. But he's a good friend. So and he really loves nature. He's a birder, and if you listen to his songs, he talks about insects and fishing in a river. And he's a great guy. So maybe I can get both of them up there together.
All right.
That'd be kind of fun.
Well, I bet you if I step in here and organize this trip, we'll get Nik there.
Yeah, well, if you want,
I just set it on film, and so we're gonna get him there.
You should, and then you should come up, and it'd be nice to get a film with a damn whale behind.
All right.
Both those guys.
I got to tell you, I didn't do this for this reason, but I'm someone who has done mostly what I want to do. I don't really have regrets in life. But when someone asks me, do you know what I say? I say, yeah, a blue whale researcher once said, come on up and I'll take you out and
I'm not saying you're going to see a blue whale.
No, I know that.
But
honestly, it's the thing I've said for the last, I don't know how long now, that's the thing that I should have just said yes to and I didn't do it.
Well, we can organize that. It's no problem.
My price of admission is I got to get Nik to come along. Is that what it is?
No, but
right, I'll bring Nik, you bring Paul.
It's more interesting for you in a way if you have Nik there, and Paul's a great guy. I mean, I got him to come and play at the 40th anniversary, which was in France. It was actually cheaper to get him and his guitarist to fly to Marseille than it was to get him to Sept-Îles.
Yeah, probably
from Toronto. And they went swimming in that place in the south of France, and then they had an extra day in Marseille, and I remember Paul, they were playing in front in this thing called the Chateau Ricard in Marseille that a friend of mine got for nothing.
Yes.
And there's a fantastic painting by Salvador Dali of fishermen, Marseille fishermen in back. And of course, Paul had to say, well, this is kind of surreal. But there's really nice pictures of him playing. Actually, there's some video too, I think, somewhere of him playing in front of that. But he's a great songwriter.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of people like to play with him. He doesn't actually, well, I don't know if he plays the guitar, but I've never seen him play it, but
it was a guitar player named Aaron Griggs that was playing with him at the time. Aaron worked with us, and Adrian Passarelli was the drummer. Yeah. We've met Adrian all over the world. He works for, well, as I told you, he worked for Nelly Furtado and for Alicia Cara and others. And we just meet them where they're traveling. I met him in Milan once. I met him in New Orleans once because we're also traveling where the
last record that he gave me, they recorded it in Italy.
Okay.
But I'm amazed at how little these guys get paid.
Yeah.
And when he did the blues festival in Mont Tremblant, he had to pay his own flight.
Right.
In a hotel, and they paid him like $1,000. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Well, he said yes.
Yeah, I know, but Jesus
if
Christ.
Musicians didn't say yes.
No, I know, but he's got other.
They could drive their own value up, but they don't do it. That's a different topic.
But he's won a Juno too around before that. I mean, I joked with him. I said, "Well, how was it winning a Juno? You mean my Nobel Prize?" But
Great. So Richard. the Mingan Research Center and other projects that you do carry on. And so if somebody wants to know more about your work or even wants to donate to...
Yeah, well, we're a US
also, right?
We're a US nonprofit, 501c3, and we're a Canadian federal charity.
Yeah.
And they can go on to our website, which is rorqual.com. That's RORQUAL.com. Rorqual is just the baleen whales we work on.
Okay.
But a lot of people, when I say rorqual, they think requin or something, and I don't quite get it. But but people can, we have people that offer their services or money or, every little bit helps. Trust me, it goes in the black hole of research and never comes out again, but every little bit helps.
All right, and finally, is there something I should have asked you had I been a better interviewer that you wanted to talk about today that we didn't cover?
No, I don't know. What do you think? No, I tend to jump all over the place anyway, so.
That's good. Well, I've enjoyed it. Thank you very much, Richard.
Yeah, it was fine.
All right.
Well, you can think about it till you come up to see blue whales with Nik. Yeah.
Thank you for watching and listening. You can find more episodes wherever you listen to your podcasts, and a special thanks to those who support us on Patreon. It's your support that enables us to do this work.